Well, I know a lad called Spider from Coronation Street. He was an eco-warrior. He went out with Leanne Battersby. You know Les Battersby? He went out with Janice too. She was on Matthew Kelly's Stairs in the Rise and she lost her shoe. Oh, I wish I was on the Pines with Spider. He was in Coronation Street in 2003. Oh, myself and Spider rolling up a 5 Skinner. Oh, ho, ho, hey. That was an ode to Spider, the lad from Coronation Street. Where is he now? Or as James Blunt would say, ask yourself a question. Where is he now? Do you know what, hey? There's an awful lot of nostalgia from the early noughties and 10 years ago. See, when you get to my age, hey, which is 25, you start losing contact with what it means to be pop cultural. And you realise that most of the shite that you aspire to growing up is just all meaningless bollocks. And that when you're young, you're essentially a daft cunt. As was I. You know what? I still am sometimes, but come here. That's neither here nor there, I suppose, right? Do you get me? Ho ho! This isn't actually part of the book. This is just me talking shite at the beginning. Just a bit of a warm-up. This is part 3 of the Hardy book. I hope you've been enjoying the crack for the last 2 episodes. Me, Eddie Durkan here, the man reading the book about Castletown and the life around Castletown. Maybe I might come across as being a bit of a begrudging bastard, but come here, when you've lived the life I have, you'd feel the same way too, hey? Do you know what I mean? I won't lament upon the past. There'll be good times and bad times. As Led Zeppelin would say, you know I've had me fair share, hey? Come here now, get stuck in, put the headphones right into the ear hole, and just get ready to lie down, sit back and relax, cause now we're coming up to the main event. Hardy Book, Part 3, French Haze. Slagging people off. Sure, I'm guilty of it myself. I won't lie, man. That's gospel, according to Brian McFadden. Fair play to McFadden, hey. You done awful well for yourself. You done a little bit too well, as they'd say in the States. When wallowing in your own existential bog hole, the last thing you want to see is other lads doing well, swanning around town, living it up, rubbing it in. Like the time my oldest friend from childhood, French Toast O'Toole, acquired a CNC lathing diploma in Galway. A diploma that enabled him to build metal components by using a computerized lathe in engineering factories. Toasteen started getting a bit above his station, talking about the future. We were all in our early 20s at the time and felt deeply jarred by the idea of accepting personal responsibility for our less than flattering life choices. Scared by the mountain path that stretched out before us. He grew existentially tired of seeing us all stuck in a repetitive circle of procrastination, binge drinking marathons, in bed all day, out late at night. Eventually his levee broke. He towered over us one day in the living room of Buzz's cottage, recently inherited Granny's Doss house, addressing us with a rousing Al Pacino-style any given Sunday speech. I have to say, it stirred an emotion within us that struck us to the marrow. We knew the integral words he spoke were of truth. We reflected upon our negligent life choices, lamented, as we looked across the long road to success, the effort required to correct life's path in order to attain our hopes and dreams. We envisioned a future of financial prosperity and independence, respect from the community. It was a real eye-opener, like the time in The Matrix when Neo took the red pill from the chat dealer and it blew his mind. We all decided there was only one thing to do. We'd pull our socks up and get stuck in. And so began a concerted campaign of mild hazing to crush Frenchie's dreams, making him feel bad about furthering his success. In fairness, I was actually up for starting over until Buzz started calling him Professor College Boy. I suppose looking back, we got a bit carried away with it. Like a senseless mob of headers smashing up a city centre during a riot. We gotten a taste for it. Buzz started it off. Hey, Boston Harvard, where are you off to in the fancy leather jacket, man?
Fancy? Sure, I've had this jacket the last 5 years.
Yeah, sure you have, college boy. Look at you, going off to college. A regular freshman, said Buzz, smug and content, nodding his head slowly, looking around at the rest of us, seeking approval.
Freshman? Sure, I'm 22, man.
You don't move like no 22-year-old.
What does it even mean?
You do the math, college boy. Oh, you know exactly what that means.
I fucking don't. I haven't a clue what you're saying. You're talking shite.
That's what all the college boys say. You want to knock that college shite in the head. You've changed for the worst, man. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Poor old Frenchie. He was pretty bummed out. Buzz McDonald, my right-hand henchman, maintained it was for his own good, saying he didn't want Frenchie getting hurt by becoming a big-headed softcock, moving off somewhere nice to become a big fancy ponce with a wife, semi-detached house, kids, and a nice Volvo. Frenchie eventually did what any of us would have done in that situation, and folded, caving in to baseless peer pressure. Thus he drank himself into oblivion. Looking back now, I can't help but feel bad about the whole chapter of contempt. I guess it all worked out for the best in the end. He was due to move to Sydney in September 2006 to start work as a supervisor in a high-tech factory. Selfishly, we didn't want to see our cosy old friend leave home. We love Torstein dearly. He's a lovely old skin. We'd do anything for him these days. He now lives in the pink cottage with us. When he's not wandering around the towns playing tin whistle, he's singing folk songs in pubs for pints and food. He's a wandering bard, wizened traditional quasi-holy man, ravishing the mature buttes. I'll fill you in on that crack later on. Is there jealousy involved? An ode to Noreen. I was often at the brunt of harmless jealousy myself, especially when I started going out with my ex, Noreen, back in the day. Oh, Boo and Buzz, oh man, they gave me an awful hard time of it. They took it to obsessive levels. I'm talking stalker levels of obsession. I'm amazed we're still friends, come to think about it. As the old saying goes, rejection breeds obsession, and they felt rejected. It all started on a fine Friday evening in June. I landed into Duncreeby's Bar and Grill, proud as punch, with one of the finest girls in town, Noreen. As the Boo wouldn't stop saying, and I mean that, I was like the cat that got the cream. Despite her brains and natural beauty, she decided against joining the waves of other young people in leaving the country after the recession hit. She decided to stay in town instead of pursuing more lucrative pastures abroad. She was offered a job in King's Cross Hospital in London directly after graduating from NUIG in Galway. She refused, saying that she wanted to stay at home. Being a nice earthy type with a great sense of humour, she was kind, patient and considerate, slow to judge others, a rose growing among the briars, appreciating the slow-paced charm of rural life in Mayo, the babbling brooks, the sound of swallows returning in May to raise families over the summer. She enjoyed the clean air and the breathtaking golden sunsets over Mount Nathan. The chaos and choking traffic of London would have only worn her down. And instead of indulging in the madness of the pub scene, she preferred movie nights, long walks in the country and cooking. Charming and sweet, driven and independent, an old head on young shoulders. Her own house, car, everything. I was amazed by her discipline and ability to get things done. On the other hand, I floundered between get-rich-quick schemes and working cash and claw for my uncle, Big Mick McNally, on the sites. I bagged a winner for myself after punching above me weight, but I was too daft in the head to appreciate it at the time. Sure, hindsight, it's 2020, is it not? She was 2 years behind me in school, and we always had an eye for each other since we took the swimming bus to Claremorris on a Saturday back in '97. I was a fecklessly hormonal teenager with a ginger undercut and a centre part, Adidas, shell-top shoes and button-up tracksuit bottoms, which to this day don't even know what the hell they were about, but apparently they're making a comeback. Or maybe they're out of fashion again, I don't know. But I was at the epicenter of passing fads and mindless consumption of music videos on Top 30 Hits on Network 2. Easily encouraged into doing daft shite, the allure of mischief was too inviting for a man of such meagre willpower. But she accepted me for who I was. In 2010, Buzz and Boo were only too well aware of how easily encouraged I was. Calling round to the house all the time after I started going out with herself back in 2009. We got together after meeting at a Castletown speed dating event. It was good old crack, despite it being ruined by the Viper and the boys. I played the long game with Noreen. I met up with her in the woods, hosted by some electric picnic hipsters from Dublin. We hit it off from there. Not long after, I was staying with her night and day. It pissed off the other lads, big time. You're on the pig's back now, you cunt. Look at him there, lying on the couch like a French duke. That's right, Buzz. He's like the cat that got the cream. The frequency and hostility of their jibes increased to a fever pitch. The obsession became much more than bothersome. The stress became intolerable at one stage. I screamed at them to get the fuck out and never come back, chasing them over the threshold of the front door with the handle of a brush. Shortly after, I began to have nosebleeds and had to go to Castlebar A&E to have blood vessels cauterized up my nose, and a metre-long strip of Vaseline-soaked gauze inserted into my left nostril with the tweezers and forceps. It was agonizing, only for it all to fall out then halfway back the road. I had to go back and get the whole lot redone again. This had to be one of the most invasive procedures I'd ever experienced. Had to leave it up there for 3 days. A really sound Ugandan doctor told me the nosebleeds were down to a sharp sudden rise of high blood pressure that had brought them on. He prescribed Valium and anti-anxiety medication. I told the lads that their behaviour had done to me. To which they responded by saying, "Sure, we're only looking out for you, man." "Yeah, don't be such a baby, isn't that right, Buzz?" They'd totally forgotten why they wanted to visit us in the first place. They were bored. I suppose they missed hanging out with me. I'd usually be there with them in the pink cottage, coming up with grandiose plans for making fast coin while ensuring we'll have a good time in doing so. They were sick and tired of dealing with each other out in the cottage. They needed me back in the mix, back in the house to restore the balance of normality and subsequent activities. Initially, they would call round to collect me. We'd cruise around town doing laps. Dozens and dozens and dozens of times, lapping around and around and around, despite the fact very little was actually going on. Each lap growing more tiresome and tedious than the last. I just wanted to watch The Wire box set with herself and chill out. Make some sweet love. They knew this only too well. They began harbouring resentment. There was definitely jealousy involved. Looking back, I can understand their frustration. The two of them, single men, observing me, languishing tenderly in a purple patch. They became increasingly belligerent in their efforts, relentlessly badgering me, probing for chinks in the armour, jibes and subtle put-downs galore, questioning my integrity as a hellraiser, telling me I wasn't a true caner, that I'd gone wrong. After so much pressure, I eventually capitulated to their will, going out with them of an evening, even after looking at the disappointment in Noreen's eyes. I'd sit moodily in the passenger seat of the car, barely containing my passive aggression and disinterest in this once beloved recreation. The Boo, ferrying us around gleefully up and down the quiet streets of town. "Many wanks today?" he'd ask. "I seen that fucking Viper knocking about. He's dodgy. I'd soften his cough now if I got a hold of him." "Do you know what he is, do you?" "What is he?" I asked. "He's a twit and a cunt." In that moment of discontent with the current situation, I laughed and marvelled at his remark, for the ability to combine the most benign insult in the English language and couple it with the most offensive. It was a stroke of syntactic genius, and I had to take my beanie hat off to him and salute him for it. I laughed, as did Buzz. "Fair play, Boo. I enjoyed that line, so I did. Did you know? He enjoyed that line, Buzz. Buzz chimed in. Oh, he did he? Yeah, he did. Sure, why wouldn't he? Look at him there, in the passenger seat. He's like the cat that got the cream. Isn't that right, Buzz? Oh yeah, Boo, that's right. For fuck's sake, I exclaimed. Not this shite again. What shite? Sure, only having the crack with you, man. I know what we'll do. We'll go and see the rally boys. See what news they have from the town. While mindlessly touring the town, we had to make our own fun. Collecting bits of juicy gossip and talking about people was the main order of business. Adding long legs onto rumours was all the rage. Like the time there was talk of a boy getting castrated up on the railway bridge in town back in 2002. I know it sounds mental, but wait till you hear how it all came to be. The rumour mill had gone into maximum overdrive. Thankfully, turns out this macabre story was nothing more than a plethora of unfounded exaggerations, Chinese whispers of shock and horror, taken to Bryan Adams, cloud number 9, adding extra razzmatazz to spice things up a bit. The closest thing to truth, as far as I can tell, came from my mother's lips. She told me about a close friend of hers that was in the next hospital bed to the apparently bisexual drifter, a strange kind of fella who had blown into town on a summer wind. Not long after arriving, he was engaged in a secret romance, a relationship with an older man. That older man was working in a prominent retail outlet in town. The younger male had been extorting money from his older friend, using blackmail, threatening to let the cat out of the bag. Well, I guess I can name him, because the cat is not only out of the bag, but it's moved in with a middle-aged spinster who's taken very good care of that cat, and now they live happily ever after. The man in retail, Rudy Landini, was eventually rumbled and felt utterly compelled to evade the throng of gossipers up the town, choosing to relocate to the familiar yet international anonymity of Galway. I saw him once back in 2009, standing outside what was once Strano's gay bar on Dominic Street. He was wearing all leather pants, vest, hat and a black t-shirt with purple flames on it. At first I thought, Landini? He's into the Harley Davidson crack now, is he? He clocked me. Instinctively crumbling with shame, myself and the lads were off to consume some crispy fresh bottles of Buckfast, purchased from Harvest. We were about to sink them up in the kids' playground immediately, across from the fishmongers, where that dead lad was found in a freezer. How are you lads? It's not what it looks like. To which I answered, Rudy, to be fair, it looks like what it is. I don't care what you do. It's your life, man. Live it the way you want to. And if that's 69ing other dudes on the back of American choppers, then who am I to stop you? I wish you all the very best, mate. He nodded with a sigh of relief. Though he was long gone from out of the town and pursuing a new path in life, we reminded him that you can leave town, but all it takes is a reminder to bring everything back in a flash, like PTSD. He knew us lads were sound, even if we were a bunch of rowdy pricks. After exchanging some rudimentary pleasantries, he asked us, Where are you off to now, lads? Off to scull these bottles of B, before resolving the evening for its fondest of tidings. And with that, we bid him a farewell, and off he went back in, to the sound of erasure. Legend has it he met a Brazilian lad called Raul, and he now lives in Sao Paulo. Good luck to him. Oh, and what about that incident on the bridge, I hear you ask? Well, turns out it never even happened. And the bisexual guy? That mad bastard said he'd fallen off an excavator he was driving up on the railway bridge, used for clearing overgrown bushes from the tracks. My old lady's friend is in the man in hospital in the bed beside him said he was told first-hand by the drifter himself that the drifter had hit his head in the fall. Bizarrely, he claimed to have sustained injuries to his power zone. With that, he had a team of doctors and nurses thoroughly check his cock and balls for symptoms of trauma that he never even actually had. Turns out the demented prick just wanted to have someone touching up his jennies. He didn't even bother discharging himself. Just walked right out of the hospital. And like that, he disappeared like a tenor in Eddie Rockets. He was gone, never to be seen or heard of around these parts again. That's just one of the many thousands of rumours that have done laps of the town before fizzling out, making way for new false claims. Which brings us back to doing laps of the town with Buzz and Boo and their temporary disposition of 2010. Rally boys don't stop. Other than gossiping, the Boo and Buzz really enjoyed beeping at loose acquaintances around town. I did myself, truth be told. Not at that exact time though, for reasons already explained. After much beeping and backhanded waving off to the petrol station we would go, off to meet the boy racers on a mission to mentally download the latest information and vital leads on the Viper's whereabouts, to find out more info about him and his crew, and their latest schemes. The Rally Boys, as they were called, were the kind of guys who put every penny they had into purchasing and maintaining German and Japanese hatchback motors. To the untrained eye, this flotilla of hard men in their late teens to mid-20s could appear intimidating, pumping out house music compilation CDs, stacked and loaded in the boot of the car, blaring out rhythmical bass vibrations at full blast, the sound of soft female vocals delicately offering hollow platitudes to the clichés of love. I always found it strange how dodgy boys listened to dance music that was very much in touch with feelings of romantic remorse, buried underneath cheeky melodies and machine gun-like drum fills. Tall Paul, Tiesto, Guru Josh, Ministry of Sound floor fillers, DJ Alligator, and Silence by Delirium. Nowadays it's all Swedish House Mafia, Avicii, and Calvin Harris. The movement itself was a mixture of lads from different backgrounds, apprentice tradesmen, farmers and college boys. Older lads would come home with tales of studying to be pharmaceutical reps in Galway during the week, excited about coming home to spend time with local lads of old. They'd assemble in a neat line, parallel parked, 10 in a row sometimes. Open window to window, engines idling, revving up now and again, hard style. Most of them were adept at dealing with mechanical issues, well able to handle themselves in a rumble, as confident as they were sat in the car. Some of them lacked confidence in courtship, lacking the courage necessary to approach single women on nights out, clumsily fumbling to play it cool, eventually mustering up enough bravado in a bid to secure the object of their affection. Big men on home ground, fecklessly lost in the metropolis of a big city. You wouldn't notice it so much at home, as they were secure in their element. But you take them to Dublin City, and they'd surely stand out like a sore thumb. Birds of a feather flock together job. Boot-cut jeans, bright open shirts and raised collars, purchased from Brant Rock and Castle Bar, and other men's drapery stores around Mayo. Bright sculpted hair, slip-on shoes, tribal pendants dangling off tight-fit leather necklaces. One could have observed their displays of courtship inside the TF nightclub in Castle Bar, cautiously huddled together on the edge of the dance floor, winking and nudging each other frantically while taking in the scene, holding bottles of WKD Blue and fizzy golden pints of Bulmer's Draft, bemocking the outlandish dance moves coming from uninhibited female savvy men of confidence, moving in to secure pretty women on the dance floor. Look at the daft fucking head on your man. He's gone for the shift. Oh? How the fuck did he manage that? Many of them going home to childhood bedrooms, single, half drunk, looking around the room at posters of footballers from a decade ago, pictures of supercars, tractor memorabilia hanging from bedroom doors, souvenirs from their Leaving Cert trip to the ploughing championships, reminders of how time flies and how difficult it is now to successfully navigate the modern world, hanging on in quiet desperation, lonely, craving a nice woman to share his automotive sense of pride, wanting to take someone to Movie World Cinema to watch the latest summer blockbuster, showing off the new rear wing spoiler and alloys to other rally boys from distant towns, eventually marriage, stable trade and children. Only dreams, but no safe bet. Midnight raves. That's one type of boy racer. And then there's the nihilistic tough guys that drive around causing shite, hammering lads at will. No stitch of tax, NCT or insurance, caring absolutely naught if they're reprimanded by the long arm of the law. A court case is just another day out to those boys, already possessing a string of convictions as long as a whale's knob. Callous bastards that would have in previous times rode into town on horseback pillaging, slashing and burning their way through anyone ill-equipped to fend them off. Big players in the area, travelling from town to town like Raves of horsepower, unhinged, on the lookout for opportunistic trouble, like sharks smelling blood far away in the water. They're only minutes away from any given scrap, like a support infantry fighting vehicle, handbraking onto the scene of a fracas, jumping out hastily, throwing wild swung punches into the heads of unsuspecting victims, wheel spinning out of dodge dramatically, narrowly avoiding pissed up revellers in their wake. You get these lads all over the country. You see them there on YouTube videos tearing around council estates and stolen cars, some ending up in the revolving door of legal institutions never to be saved, others eventually paying tuition fees in the boarding school of life. Overall though, the rally boys in our town are a sound mixed bag, a motley crew spanning different shades of social strata, some from broken homes, others from wealthy, respected families. Teetotalers and weekend warriors escaping the boredom with hash, pills and drink. On the whole, they're often misunderstood, yet still respected, accepted by locals, hunted by the traffic corps. In a never-ending game of cat and mouse, living the dream of Paul Walker and Vincenzo Diesel, always chasing the adrenaline rush of evading prosecution and the loss of license. Living by the credo, if in doubt, diff it out. If the crossroad's empty, give 'em plenty. A slogan that refers to hitting the diff, a term used to describe spinning around a traffic cone, wheels whipping up plumes of thick white smoke. In more dangerous pursuits of thrills, diffing usually commences on an open stretch of new road, the N4 from Ballahadreen to Bohola, blotted with scorch marks of burned rubber smeared onto the asphalt. Over the years, the town has mourned the passing of many a young car enthusiast, victims of teenage stone death games, handsome lads dead in a car. The intimidating sound of whistling turbos and wailing dump valves can be heard puncturing the silence of cold November nights. DOHC, twin cam engines firing up as mysterious young Raves drop the left foot, bounding down Main Street and into the frontiers beyond, recklessly throwing caution to the wind. Woo! Blasting through the streets on a mission, fast and furious, Mayo drift, tearing off out into the dark and winding Ballina Road. On quiet nights, myself and Buzz like to listen to the sound of Civics, Altezas, Boras, and Audi A4s meandering through the curves of the N26. A blessed hell ride, horseman of the apocalypse, puncturing the dead of night, racing off into the distance. Just like clockwork, they would land up in Boo's bronze-coloured indestructible Nissan Micra. Battered from his reckless driving, he actually rolled it onto his roof on 2 separate occasions. They were calling over to us daily, sometimes thrice, asking Noreen to make the tea and furnish them with fancy biscuits such as Fox's Viennese fingers. They were eventually banned from visiting after taking unacceptable liberties. Showers, eating the food out of the fridge, calling me a soft cock. Of course, this wouldn't do. I was a man of honour. Stupidly, I took the bait and proved them that I was indeed the biggest caner of them all, and burnt the candle at both ends. A lose-lose situation, which subsequently came at my own expense and the expense of the relationship. Out all night, rolling home in a state to prove my allegiance to the lads, I ended up neglecting one of the most prized assets in my life, Noreen. The teachers used to say I was my own worst enemy, and I never really got what they meant until recent reflection. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know well the crack. Existence. Hey, I'm not a total waste of time either. Don't get me wrong, I've managed to eke out my own high points as well, such as winning the coveted title of King of the Town back in 2010 and the Mitzi Turbo Cup 2009. I've experienced many highs over the years. Sure, what is life without its peaks and troughs, right? Well, it's a flat line, isn't it? And a flat line is also the medical term for death, which means you're dead like. And that's no crack. Or as Mo Sislak once delicately put it, she's riding the midnight train to Slab City. Being dead must be shite-crack altogether. You go from being a living person with hopes and dreams, knowledge and loved ones, and now you're just an unpleasant, decaying reminder to the living that you're fuck all used to the world now. So naturally enough, the undertakers do you up, make you look good in the coffin, putting your Sunday best on. If you go early, your mates are standing around talking all soft shite. Lads trying to contain the emotion by making jokes. Look at you now, man. Dead as fucked. One dead bastard. I guess I can keep that 50 quid I borrowed off you 2 weeks ago. Ha ha ha. The other lads will laugh along, joining in, sharing in the bravado. But behind the brave facade lies pain. You can see it etched on their faces. Internally, they wrestle to comprehend the fact that they'll never be able to converse or confide in their belated friend. They drink up, go home then, crying behind closed doors. I've never had a problem crying at funerals. Some lads back in school, lads like Sifu Dunleavy and Chinchilla Loftus, would joke candidly, and with a total lack of consideration and respect for someone enduring the grieving process. Yeah, Durkan. Saw you the last day at the graveyard, crying at your granny's funeral. Wah! Wah! Look at me, I'm Eddie Durkan. I'm a big crybaby. Big old blubbery face on you. To which I'd rebuke, yeah, see me crying, did you? Yeah, well, it takes a tough cunt to cry in public. And anyway, I was dying of hay fever. Yeah. Sure, I know only too well it was December. Must have been some creamy blonde pollen carried on a rogue trade wind from the Tropic of Cancer. Gulf Stream job. I know I said that I'd cheer you up. Talking about funerals is pretty depressing. I know it, I get it. But it's a fact of life. We just have to get used to it. Let it be the motivator to overcome a life of mediocrity. Funeral culture for most small Irish towns is a normal part of the weekly ritual for many people. My mother would always tell us to keep the noise down while she tuned in to the death notices on Midwest radio. It was a bit like Mortal Bingo as opposed to Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was a class game, to be fair. You get used to asking existential questions at an early age. When you grow up in a small town like I did, funerals are a big part of it. You see, Castletown is like one big extended family. You grow up with every sort of person you'd see in society. In a way, like I said before, it's like an open-air prison. If you've lived in New York or London, you wouldn't have to put up with the shy-talking begrudgers, middle-aged, bitter men giving sly jibes at you of town from street corners. Career dole narcs, snitches for social welfare, like Deirdre McMunter. For better or worse, we're bound to each other because of small-town consciousness we share. Some people can't wait to get out of the town. Some kids I knew at school were gone. They didn't bother coming back. Doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've achieved. There will come a time when you can't run from it forever. Circumstance will bring you back at some point, and you'll find out who you really are. The new identity that you've built melts away like suede winkle pickers in a puddle of piss. There's no getting away from it. Every town has its own collective consciousness. Some towns are very nurturing, artistic communities. Live music and cheering can be heard spilling out from country pubs. People making sure you get home safe. Street parties, a sense of mirth and communal support. Whereas other towns have an air of contempt and jealousy to well-doers. In certain towns,
Any seeds of individuality and creativity are stifled and cast on barren ground. People naturally suited for introspective, delicate soul-searching via artistic pursuits are shot down, told they're wasting their time, that they'll come to nothing. As the uncle told me, buy a site for a house and get a job in a slaughterhouse. Fuck that crack. You should never cave into that kind of disparaging shite. Mark my words. Follow your dreams, just like Arnie did. Imagine, Arnold Schwarzenegger was from a small town as well, out in Austria. When he returned as a big Hollywood actor, they asked him how does it feel to be back in Austria, to which he answered,
Austria's not my home no more. It's just a bunch of old buildings and clocks. What the fuck did I do wrong?
Sure, he was no great shakes as a kid. Out of sheer boredom, he started lifting weights and became some kind of super mutant farmhand. Townsfolk would stop and gawk at him as he toiled in the fields, brown skin glistening in the sun. He had a jaw like a pony. Lads would call him Arnold Frankenstein. It was hard not to appreciate such a bronze giant knocking about in the Austrian hills. He liked the attention, so much so, he got a taste for it. So he lifted some more. Next thing you know, he's landed in New York City with nothing but $20 in his hand. The dude ends up marrying a Kennedy and becoming an icon. He didn't know where he was going or what he wanted to do, but he kept his head down and lifted like a beast. There's an old saying, the harder I worked, the luckier I got. My problem is, I lose interest too easily when I don't get the results I want immediately. No patience. That's why my old lady would never let me play with Lego as a kid. Who knows? If she did do, I could be a structural engineer at this point. No point in looking back now. That was the least of my worries. And then again, on the other hand, maybe I did have the patience to play with Lego, because I did ask for it a lot. But maybe she just couldn't be arsed picking up all the pieces off the floor. Well, that's something I'll have to ask her later on. When I mentioned the difference between the towns and their collective consciousness, Castletown for me lies somewhere in the middle of the two camps above. It's a town of easy living, yet crucifying boredom, punctuated with sporadic, intense action, hard drinking on an industrial scale. On a night out, people drink themselves into a state of delirium, expecting things to go on autopilot and working the situation into a night of an amazing achievement, which rarely ever happens. They just wake up in bits, head throbbing, clutching the pillow, in the throes of terror, expecting different results. Sure, the place has its ups and downs, like Prince Andrew's bare arse. The recent surge in cocaine use doesn't help matters much either. It was bad enough when lads were pissed up to the eyeballs on Jaeger bombs, but throwing in a load of chunk gives them way more endurance and hardwires their brains into a state of randiness. The lack of courtship opportunities in town leave men excited and frustrated, which in turn leads to fights outside the chipper of a Saturday night. Sure, there's lads in leaving cert snorting blow nowadays, where previously it was only reserved to the most exclusive circles in Ireland. Doctors, solicitors, and RTE radio presenters. Shit's gone mental, man. So with this context in mind, you'll see that my life in the Castletown cosmos is anything but a flat line. It's a mental spot that will catch you off guard at any time. All this talk of flat lines would make a man stop and think. I really do hope there's an afterlife. And if there is one, I hope that I've been a good boy and won't get sent down to the red lad downstairs to be tormented for ages. Sure, God knows me better than I know myself. He knows I might be a daft prick, but I'm not a bad bastard. God, he's kinda like Google, but his prying eyes can't be remedied by applying a slither of gaffer tape over a webcam. The big mon upstairs sees it all, or so we're led to believe. If this is the case, he knows I'm doing me best. Can't do any more than I'm doing, or life would be shite crack. You've only got to blow the cobwebs out every now and again, or you'll bust loose and kill some mongs on the cobbles uptown. I'm like that lad in Steppenwolf. You know the song, Born to be Wild. I can't help it. It's genetic. And at the end of the day, all we are is our genetics expressing themselves in the world around us. So don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself a break. Put the feet up every now and again and just say, tonight I'm going playing Days Gone on the PS4. It's class. It's basically like Sons of Anarchy meets World War Z with Bradley Pitt. It's class. Check it out. Man, going to heaven after I check out this mortal coil would be sound. Hanging out with loved ones and old pets. Can't really imagine what heaven is like. Too abstract a concept. My imagination doesn't stretch that far. It could be like all the best things you knew as a kid. As Jim Morrison would say, smug in the woolly cotton brains of infancy. If there was ever a man who pushed it to the edge, it was Jim. Myself and Cowboy Lavins were mad about the Doors growing up. He wanted to be Jim Morrison after watching Oliver Stone's film about him. Cowboy went on holiday to Boston back in the day and bought a pair of leather pants for $400. He didn't quite get the look Jim had, but he got plenty of funny looks. I don't even think he tried to put the pants on before he bought them. They were at least 4 sizes too big for him, whereas Jim's were probably tailor-made by some designer in LA. Still, it made him feel like a cool dude, sitting at the bar buying rounds of drinks for the lads. Fair play to Cowboy, he always was a sound skin for getting the drinks in. He's a good lad, and he'll be getting his own chapter later on. Other than my theory of heaven being like the best bits of childhood, all I can think of for the time being is driving around full speed, steamed up on go-karts and shifting lovely women. Just cruising around having the best of crack, with the finest of bookles. But what if the lads don't make it in? I suppose it'd be like going into a class nightclub, only to find out the bouncer, aka St. Peter, has told my friends, "Not tonight, lads. Grab a coffee, go to Purgatory for 15,000 nights and sober up, yeah?" Purgatory. Oh man, that place sounds boring as fuck. It would be like getting stuck in double maths class on a sunny Monday afternoon, straight after the summer holidays have ended, for centuries, until you pass the leaving cert. Worse again, stuck in Bus Aris in Dublin after missing the 22 bus to Ballina. All we can do is live the best life we can. Be good and kind to each other. You know, I've pulled some stupid stunts over the years, which are to follow in this book. I do my best to be sound, and that's the main thing. I hope that you, the reader, can enjoy reading this experience to the full. Maybe I might win over one of those Pulitzer Prizes that those academic spoofers over in America get. I'd be a big shot then, so I would. Touring around, appearing on chat shows, plugging the book. Ellen DeGenerate will have me on, dancing around the studio in some kind of bizarre Hollywood-style humiliation ritual, live, in front of mouth-breathing housewives wanting a big fat slice of the Durkan flute. Hey, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll see if I can get the bastard finished first, never mind published internationally. If this has indeed been published, that's awesome. Congrats to me, I guess. Maybe you've picked up a copy in Tesco or Eason's on O'Connell Street, passing the time in a Starbucks up in Dublin. Your head's melted as it's filled with young Spanish tourists screaming and shouting, making daft noises. I'm there for you. I'll wrap the hand around the shoulder and say, "That'll do, pig. That'll do."
Fair balls to you. I appreciate you listening. This has been the end of part 3 of the Hardy book. If you've enjoyed this and you think it's tasty and you want to hear more, please, by all means, spread the word. And if you want to join Patreon, go to hardybookspatreon.com. Good luck and God bless.